Steam Next Fest is a week-long event where hundreds of free game demos drop on Steam, usually for upcoming indie games. It's the perfect time to discover hidden gems, wishlist your favorites, and get a feel for what's coming next. Now, I was actually on vacation in Greece during the fest, so I completely missed the hype while the event was live. But when I got back, I discovered a bunch of demos were still available, so I jumped in and played as many as I could. Now, there might be some great ones I missed, but I specifically filter for demos with official controller support, and all of the games in this list run at least 30 FPS on the Steam Deck OLED. So whether you missed the fest like me or just didn't have time to try everything, here are 6 standout demos you can still play right now, and here's why they grab my attention, especially on the Steam Deck. The first game is called Brew. Brew is a chaotic and colorful alchemy shooter where you run around as a cat, crafting potions on the fly and firing them from your wand-like twin-stick weapon. It's vibrant, weird, and honestly a lot more addictive than I expected. On the Steam Deck OLED, it runs close to 60 FPS with low to medium settings and half resolution scaling. It's not locked though, and those dips can feel a little jarring at first, but once you get flowing in the gameplay loop, you can hardly notice. It's just plain fun. The game has full controller support and everything feels responsive. Now, the potion system adds great variety to this type of third-person shooter game. You can stack effects like freezing, poison, explosions, and even buffs, and experiment mid-combat. If you like creative, chaotic action games with a quirky twist, Brew is definitely one to try before it disappears. Next up is Eriksholm, The Stolen Dream. Now, Eriksholm is a stealth-driven isometric adventure game set in a beautifully realized early 1900s Nordic city. You play as Hannah, trying to track down her missing brother, and the game really nails its atmosphere. What stood out to me most was the mood. It's dark, gritty, and filled with tiny environmental details. It feels almost like Dishonored in an isometric perspective with some solid stealth mechanics and physics-based puzzle element. On the Steam Deck, performance was decent, around 45 to 50 FPS indoors, but once you step outside, it dips quickly. So the best experience I had was locking it to 30 FPS and keeping the settings on medium. The game has full controller support and it works well. The stealth gameplay is satisfying, especially when you start linking puzzles together. This one's definitely wishlist material if you enjoy slow, thoughtful exploration with a cinematic touch. Okay guys, it's me. If you're enjoying this type of content and you want to see more Steam Deck content, particularly reviews for games that have been optimized for best settings on the Steam Deck, consider having a look at my Steam Curator page. I post all my reviews there, specifically tuned for Steam Deck settings, and you can also join my Steam group here. We can have discussions around Steam Deck, games that run best, and other tips and tricks. And if I can do this, I'll have links in the description for both of these. Now back to the video. Now coming in hot at number 3 is Cleared Hot. This one really brought back memories. Cleared Hot is a nostalgic helicopter shooter with physics-based mechanics that reminded me of a lot of old school titles like Desert Strike or Soviet Strike on the PS1. You pilot your chopper in semi-top-down view missions, rescue soldiers, destroy enemy bases, and use a grappling hook and a magnet to swing objects, drop bombs, and cause chaos. It's very simple but surprisingly fun. Performance-wise, it is a bit heavy. On the deck, it ran at around 40 FPS on default settings, but when explosions stack up, it can dip as low as 20 FPS. Unfortunately, the demo doesn't offer any graphical options, so you're stuck with the default preset. Hopefully that will change when the game releases so you can do some customizations, but locking it to 30 FPS smooths out the experience, and the physics combined with that old school vibe make it worth trying, especially if you grew up with games like Desert Strike, Jungle Strike, or Soviet Strike. This one really nails the vibe, and I think it's a fantastic choice to play it on the Steam Deck. The next game I tried is called Morbid Metal. Morbid Metal is a fast-paced, cyberpunk-inspired action roguelite where you can shapeshift between 4 different characters mid-combat. At first glance, it looked like just another flashy slasher, but the gameplay quickly pulled me in. Each character has their own moveset, and switching between them lets you chain together stylish combos on the fly. The movement feels slick, the combat is tight, and it has that just one more run quality you want from a roguelite. On the deck, you want to run it on low or very low settings to keep close to 60 FPS, though it can still drop around to 45 during busier fights, but overall, it's definitely very playable and pretty responsive for how fast of a game it is. If you like games with satisfying combat systems and sleek presentation, I think this one you want to keep an eye on. Next up, I played Hellclock. This one really surprised me with how it looks and how it runs. Hellclock blends isometric RPG combat with roguelike progression and bullet hell style attacks, all wrapped in a dark, gritty world inspired by Brazil's War of Canudos. I had no idea about this culture, but it really struck with me. Visually, it looks great, and on the Steam Deck OLED, it ran at a smooth 60 FPS on high settings. The lighting and effects really popped on that screen. Gameplay-wise, it feels like a mix between Diablo and Hades. You pick from randomized skills, dodge attacks, loot new gear, and fight through increasingly intense waves of enemies. Full controller support works perfectly, and I didn't run into any scaling or performance hiccups. If you're looking for a slick, high-speed action RPG with a unique atmosphere and graphics, roguelike repairability, and some loot hunting, this one is one of the best demos I tried. Now the last one I tried is called Hordes of Fate, a Hand of Fate adventure. I believe there's a lot of games in this franchise. I'm not even sure if this is actually part of the Steam Next Fest, but I discovered it around the same time and the demo is still available, so I'm counting it. Hordes of Fate is a bullet hell auto shooter with deck building mechanics. Yeah, pretty weird. You basically draw cards that add new powers, enemies or modifiers to the battlefield, and then you dodge and fight your way through. So you can select cards that will actually hurt your gameplay, or ones that will actually buff you, or ones that will give you new spells. I think it's a pretty fresh take on this genre. You know, I love bullet hell games on the Steam Deck. It runs mostly at 60 FPS on medium settings, but occasionally it can dip hard, sometimes down to 15-20 FPS during heavy scenes. Hopefully those stutters get fixed before full release. The other issue I had with this game is that some of the text is pretty small to read. For example, on the bottom where your spells are or your cards are, text can be very, very hard to read on the Steam Deck. But still, I think it's a really fresh mix of systems. You level up, build your deck, customize your character, and adapt to whatever the game throws at you. And definitely want to try if you're a fan of games like Vampire Survivors or Slay the Spire style deck building. And it works well enough on the Steam Deck. So those were the 6 demos that really stood out to me. For some of them, I'm really looking forward to checking out the full game. All of them run well enough on the Steam Deck OLED, and they all have controller support, and a few might be future hidden gems. Now let me know in the comments if you tried any of these, or if there's any other Next Fest demo I missed that I have to check out. And if you like content like this, consider leaving a like on the video. It really helps me out a lot with the algorithm. Don't forget to subscribe for more Steam Deck content, and I'll see you guys in the next video.